firewall, where human insight trumps every trick. We're not hacking systems, we're hacking behaviors so you won't click. No complicated code, just tried and true brain science at play. Social engineering for good, the best defense is in your mind today.
Hello and welcome to Fishing for Answers, where the carrot beats the stick and we flip the script on the bad guys, turning humans from easy targets into the strongest line of defense.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast belong solely to the hosts and guests and don't necessarily reflect those of their employers or sponsors. We're seasoned security professionals, but this is a conversation, not a custom consultation. Need specific guidance? Reach out to Joshua Crumbaugh directly.
Get ready. Fishing for Answers starts right now.
All right. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Fishing for Answers. Today we have Dan Lohrmann with us. He is the Field CISO at Presidio and former CISO of the state of Michigan and all kinds of other stuff. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again. I love your intro. It just gives you that passion of moment. Love it. But Dan Lohrmann, as you mentioned, with Presidio and background, started my career at the National Security Agency. I was in England with Lockheed and Mantech for 7 years in the early 90s and mid 90s. And then 17 years in Michigan government. So in Michigan, I was CISO, CTO, agency CIO, a lot of different roles. Now in the private sector, working with CISOs across the country, mainly in the public sector, but a little bit in the private sector as well.
Awesome. Can you? What did you do for the NSA? I mean, can you talk about it, or?
I'd have to kill you, Josh. No, it's just started as a network analyst and learned networking. I won't go into more details than that, but just needless to say, security is their middle name, and it is their middle name. And culture was an amazing place to start my career. So, been very blessed with that. Also, I didn't mention I blog Lohrmann on cybersecurity, Government Technology Magazine, and I've written 3 books. The latest one is Cyber Mayday and the Day After, which is a true ransomware story. So maybe we'll get into some of that.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I know every time I get called in on a ransomware event and I get to work with people, you learn so much every single time. There's rarely there hasn't been a time yet where I didn't learn something new. So sounds like a great book. I'll definitely have to pick that up, and
I'll get you a signed copy. Yeah, that'll be on me.
Even better. Better.
I'll do that.
All right. So well, let's jump in. I think AI is a really, really great place to start because there's so much to unpack there. I know it's what everyone's talking about, but it's what everyone's talking about because it's a really big deal and it's changing all of our lives actively. So what side of AI do you want to start at?
Yeah, I mean, the hot topic everyone's talking about is Mythos right now, of course, and Anthropic just announced that they're expanding that Glasswing project. So there's so much going on. I mean, my blog's coming out on Sunday, just talking about, we can talk about the 3 hot topics. There's so much we can discuss, but the president's EO, we can go there. Just came out, the executive order, Glasswing, Mythos, everyone, just the speed at which, these attacks are now coming at us, autonomous attacks, lessons learned from the early stage of that impacting cyber teams across the country, and the vulnerabilities, the chaining them together to create the exploits, and then now of course Glasswing, Anthropic just announced that they're expanding that team of companies. I think to 150 to 200 companies. I think it's then going to go to probably 500 to 1,000 in the next couple months. But it's just
spanning quite a few countries as well, not just
correct,
the United
exactly.
States like it is right now.
It is. It's going global, and it's what everyone's talking about. I mean, it's just like literally sucking the oxygen out of the room in every conversation. People preparing for that.
Yeah. So I got to talk to somebody that's used Mythos, because unfortunately I'm not one of those companies, not yet. But I was speaking to one of the deputy CISOs at Moody's the other day, and they do have access to it, and he was saying that it can, I mean, straight up write new exploits, like stack overflows, trace overflows, some very, very complex stuff. And without even necessarily having the tooling, like it's just that smart, which I mean, if it is, I can't wait to get my hands on it. But that is what they're saying. And I think that it presents a lot of risk. And if that's going to be available at some point to the mass public, we can expect that we're going to start getting hit by it. And even if the bad guys never get a hold of Mythos, they're going to build something that's nearly as good. And I think that's the scary part there.
I totally agree. And I think, OpenAI's latest release as well, whether, I don't know the percentages, 70, 80%, but, clearly we've got the assumption out there. And again, I think, your audience is probably familiar with this, but, we've got to prepare now. And this is literally exponentially different and we've been talking about cyber attacks for decades, right? And but this is different, and the level, the speed, the amount, the chaining together of the vulnerabilities to create the exploits. I think people need to really rethink how they do the whole process of vulnerability remediation, patching, how they even think about working with their partners, supply chain. I mean, all of it is just getting exponentially, changing in front of our eyes.
It absolutely is. And it reminds me, so my career started as an ethical hacker, and it was never, I can't say never, but it was rarely those high or critical exploits that would let us in. It was typically a series of moderates and lows that were chained together that ended up being our path into the network. And so you brought up, that chaining together different exploits. And I think that that's something that now that AIs are capable of doing that, it's definitely going to change the playing field. And to that, I mean, I saw one study that said there was an 800% increase in phishing attacks last year. So it's not just slowly getting crazier. It's like a bomb went off. I mean, best way I know to put it.
Yeah, and I think the thing it's we get to phishing and talking about the human side of this on a personal level for those watching. It's all the different channels. It's not just so many people think, and I know you preach this all the time, and your product does it. It's not just email. It's texting. It's phone. It's voice. And we all see this in our daily use of the internet. It's like, how did all of a sudden the traditional example is people saying, is my iPhone listening to me? And all of a sudden it shows up in ads in my browser. And I think that I was just talking to my wife about it. We see those. We know that that's true.
Happened to me this weekend, by the way. There's no way I lost something. And I was talking to her about it, and she goes, you need to put a GPS on it. Like 10 minutes later, I'm getting an ad for that thing with GPS built into it. And I'm like,
Totally. And it's like my wife and I did the same thing. We were talking about, like, well, do we want to do something coming up? Do we want to do a trip down the Rhine River? Do we want to do, yeah, my friend was telling me about, those Viking cruises and these things. Same thing. 30 minutes later, I'm on a browser. Those Viking cruise ads is showing up. It's like, I mean, so if you just think, and those are the quote unquote honest ones, right? I mean, those are the ones that, like, they're using that marketing material. Just think about the bad actors using that. So, I mean, it's like you've got to take everything with a level of skepticism around, are you leading me down the primrose path? I mean, I think, and that plays into enterprise workplaces. It plays in, and you and I do this for a living. I mean, we live this, we talk about it, we get excited about it, right? But I mean, your average person is like, they're just like trying to pay the bills and head to McDonald's for lunch. I mean, whatever it might be.
And now they have to deal with deep fakes.
Exactly.
Which is insane.
It is, and it's impacting every area of life. And so, and I think, when we start talking about AI in that regard, I mean, it's and I think when we start thinking about, and I'd love to hear from you, and we were just talking earlier about some of the different motivations around training and that kind of thing, we can go there. But when you start thinking about how people get that initial access and then utilize that, whether that be phishing, whether that be something else, and then going laterally, once they've got it, now how do they use it? Now do they, now they have that login. Can they escalate it to admin privileges, all of those kinds of things? Yeah. It just gets more and more imperative that people take action.
Well, and that they get penetration testing done. I think that now it's more important than ever, because any bad guy can be an expert hacker. Like, I mean, we're talking script kiddies now with the right AI can, come off as a very skilled hacker. Yeah. And to me, that's one of the parts there that really concerns me. But one thing you were hitting on, and it just sort of made me laugh, or think of something that always makes me laugh. But you said, it's not just email, and I'm thinking, no, it's anything that people can communicate through. And it reminded me, I was thinking back in my head at the time that I forget what big company it was, but they were hacked through fax, and so the bad guys, they faxed to the registrar and said, I need you to change this DNS record. And they redirected the whole website for, I don't know, like something like 12 hours to their malicious site. And it just goes to show, if you can communicate there's a chance you'll get hit. And I mean, we've seen the snail mail, phishing, where they snail mail you a QR code and things like that. So they're definitely getting creative.
Well, and I think that the one that's lately hit me, it just getting, not getting into too many details, but it's just the texting.
Oh yeah,
they do it. I mean, the and it can be low tech. It doesn't have to be a link. It's like, hey, want to get together this weekend? My initial thought is, who the heck are you? I don't even know who this is. But they're ready for you to say. And sometimes I'll play along, or we get the other ones. And I've done this before too. I've done it. The pastor of our church keeps getting these. That they did this for years with emails, like, because they get the name off of the directory of a website or whatever, and then they get the list of the names of the people that are public somehow, and they know who they are, and they say, hey, I need you to do this for me. But it's, it's not him. It's not him, because it's not his address. It's not his texting. It's not his email. Well, they did that for email for a long time. Hey, send me Apple iCards. I need to give these to a homeless widow, and they tug on you. It's always this like deflection. Look over here. Don't look over here. Now they do that with texting. So you become suspicious of almost any, if you don't know who that person is that's texting you, any number that's like not in your list, where are they taking me, playing along and saying, hey, who are you? Then they come back, oh, this is, and then before you know it, you're in a conversation with them, which is exactly what they want, because now they've got your attention.
And that's where most of the romance scams are starting, is through those text messages. I got one the other day. I said, I really like your energy. That was it. I guess I was supposed to reply, thank you. And
exactly. And then they got you. And then now you go,
right.
now you go to round two because they passed you to the next person in the chain. It's a whole food chain of like, okay, we're going to go to the next line, the next line, the next line. But
it
must be
is
successful. They wouldn't be doing it. I mean, there's somebody's making money off of this.
Well, I got a chance. I briefed the FBI on, well, their working group in the town I used to live in. But I briefed them on AI and just how it was advancing and all the different models and what to know about the different frontier models and whatnot, and what threats were there. But while I was there, I had an opportunity to talk with a number of their more senior and some of the more technical cybercrime analysts. And what I found really interesting was that they said the number one thing that they're dealing with that accounts for a huge proportion, and I forget what the exact number was, but a huge percentage of their overall fraud that they see is that romance scam right there, where they're going after individuals, getting them to hand over their life savings.
Wow. That's just so scary. That is just so scary.
But to me, the evil part of it is that it's the double whammy, right? It's not only do they lose their money that they've spent their whole lives saving, but on top of that, they fell in love or thought they fell in love with somebody who wasn't even real. So I just can't imagine the type of like psychological trauma that somebody goes through after they get taken by something like that.
Yeah, and I think, there's a lot of really good, TV shows and movies that talk about that. Like BBC does a series on that. They chase some people down doing the romance scams out of Africa and Nigeria, and there's a number of I think 60 Minutes did another one, I think, around that too. People want to dive into the details of like, how does that work and how do they get you? But it's almost, you realize like almost anything. It could be a deal. It could be, my wife getting tricked around Facebook. Facebook Marketplace is another big one. Where, all of a sudden she would see, two chairs that, like, wow, these are really nice leather chairs that, and it's like a third of the price of normal, whatever. And long story short, it went through five rounds, but the whole thing was fraudulent. And they started with a real address right here in mid-Michigan that, but it was a real address, but it wasn't. They didn't really live there. They may have lived in Russia. I don't know where they lived, but the whole thing. But it could be Facebook Marketplace. It could be a romance scam. It could be a deal. It could be, anything.
Well, that's how I get my wife, is a deal.
Yeah. No, and mine is too. And it's she's learned her lesson now, though. She's like, whoa, I bought so many things on Facebook Marketplace, and it's always been fine. And well, now the 12th time was not the right one. But
you have to be really careful. I actually bought something off Facebook Marketplace the other day, and was so skeptical because it was a new account. They had only ever listed two things. Neither one had sold yet, and I was considering buying one of them. But you have to be careful. I know with that one, I absolutely just. It was someone local, so I was like, hey, we can meet up, and if you actually have the product, I can give you some cash. But no, you have to be careful. There's so many. There's just scams everywhere. I don't ever go to like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or any place like that without seeing fraudulent stuff in there, and it's normally in the form of something that's way underpriced. But you got to be careful. They're getting smarter and learning not to make them so obvious too. So
when back to AI, I think what this is, what I'm learning, and I continue to be amazed in a good way and a bad way, the opportunity, the power, the opportunity to do agentic agents. I try to get to yes. I learned a long time ago. I think I shared that in a previous episode. I almost got fired for saying no to Wi-Fi 20 years ago. And I learned, security pros are used to saying no. And, we could say no to, we said no to Wi-Fi in the early days. We said no to cloud, bring your own device to work. It's easy to just say no to AI. That's not the answer. I mean, the answer is this is the new world we live in. Agentic agents are here. They're not going away. So how do you have the right tools? How do you do this in a way how do you get to yes in a secure manner? Knowing tips. And one simple, easy one, I just want to throw it out with Facebook Marketplace. Just look, how long has this person been around? If they've been around for less than a year, less than a couple weeks or days, probably not the best, even if they claim they're local to buy from them. But
now, I gotta say, Meta AI actually gave me that summary and told me every bit of that right at the top of it.
Okay.
So I was actually really impressed with that. I didn't have to go dig to find out that the account was under a year old, and that they only ever had 2 listings and that both of them were still active. It just volunteered it. So I do think they're getting a little bit better at it. And finally, that's an example of where we're seeing AI to counter the AI threats, but I think we need a lot more of it. And I've seen a lot of companies that are still reluctant to rely on AI on the cybersecurity front. And I think it's a lot like development was a year ago. A year ago, it was very hard to get developers to use AI as a regular part of their development process. But now most developers have learned or have realized that if they don't, they're not going to keep their jobs for long, right?
Can't keep up. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the same way with cybersecurity right now, where you still have a lot of people that they love it as a tool, but they don't want to give it very much power to go out and run. And I think with agents, we have to give them a little bit more leadway. And I might argue that everyone's trying to make it perfect. It's not about getting it perfect where you don't ever have an agent that makes a mistake. It's about getting it more accurate than the humans that you already have running it.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good advice. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know how much time we have, but love to hear your thoughts, at least initially, on the president and CEO and where do you think that's going? Because I think it's a significant kind of direction. The idea that the 30-day government review, voluntary versus mandatory. I think 30 to 90. There's a lot of different things in there. People haven't had a chance to go out and look at that. I highly recommend you look at that executive order, because that will be the lay of the land here for the next 6 to 12 months at least. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I definitely. I have mixed feelings. I do think there's a need for it. I also see that we're competing globally in the AI race, and every month a lot happens in the AI space. So we are potentially slowing down US-based companies a little bit in that race. But there's probably a need. What I will say is I've been waiting for some AI regulation. I expected something more than this. I actually didn't imagine that it would even look like this at all. So, but I do think that we've got to put some guardrails around it on a global basis here, not just in the United States or in the EU, but globally. We've got to figure out something around AI, because it is Pandora's box and it can't be closed. So the best we can do at this point is put some guardrails around it.
Yeah, it's good points. And I mean, I think people think, it was 90 days review by the government. Now it's down to 30 days. I think a lot of people think that was a win. And I'm trying to keep politics out of this. This to me is not a left-right issue, or
this is just do we want Skynet or not issue.
Exactly. No, it's that's great. No, but it's the idea, the philosophy around, can the government really do what can they really do in that 30 days is a big question. I think, to your point, we'll see where the regulation goes. I mean, I think I will say this: when Mythos first came out, you and I haven't spoken, since then. I think the last time was before that.
Oh yeah.
And it was, I mean, the fact that all the top banks met in Washington at the White House tells you a lot. I mean, they were worried. Let's be clear about this. They were worried about a financial issue. I mean, people's bank accounts like disappearing and things. I mean, that is serious. This is serious stuff. This isn't just, oh no, we need to add two-factor or something. I mean, this is a paradigm shift. And so I think, could there be another Mythos-like moment? We're not out of this one yet. We're still at Mythos 1.0, right? I mean, expanding it to 150.
And it's all hearsay still. But
it's hearsay. But I'll say this, to your point, you said earlier, I'm just jump in on that. I mean, I don't have access to it personally, but I have many friends that do, and teams that have shown, and I've gotten briefings with people, and I've been in closed door meetings without going into details, and people who thought the whole thing was just marketing and trying to get Anthropic's IPO price up and the whole thing was a bunch of garbage came away saying, no, this is real.
I agree. Everyone I've talked to that's actually touched it says it's real. So I got to be honest. I'm a little bit jealous at this point.
You want to be in that 150 list.
I do. Or even that 1,000, but even them, expanding it, it's still so small of a group of people that have access to it.
Okay, right.
What I do know though is everything is expanding at a rate that's unprecedented. Regardless of what they have with Mythos and how quickly the public gets access to it, or if the public gets access to it, there's going to be other models that pop up that are just as smart in a short period of time here. And so I do think that we've got to be prepared for it. I mean, we needed to be prepared for it a couple of years ago, but if we don't have a really, really good vulnerability management in place, I think that's one of the most critical ones. And then I think training are like the two most critical things, because you've got your people that need to know what to do with AI and what they can't do and how they can use it safely. And of course,
No, I'd love to hear more from you on how you see AI changing training. But I'll just share one thing. I won't name the person's name. There's again a blog coming out this weekend, so I'm sure it's gonna be public anyway. But I had lunch with the CEO of a startup doing very well, successful, growing fast. And I'm not going to go into any more details than that. You guys will figure out who it is, but really good guy. He was telling me, and we were talking about, taking a step back for a moment and just kind of paint this picture, because I found that really fascinating. And it changed my perspective maybe 45 degrees on AI after that lunch with him. But he was saying, Dan, we used to always say, you built software in my career, certainly the almost 40 years now. I've been in this since I started at NSA way back in the late 80s. You have built a secret sauce box. We're the only ones that do this, and then you get the intellectual property, the copyrights, you get the patents and all the rest. And he said, but that world is changing, because now people can take whatever you do, whatever you make the best water bottles in the world, whatever it is, whatever software product, or now it's like people can reverse engineer that with agentic AI, and they can create that same function. So it does go back. He said, so what will be the point? And he pointed me to some interviews. People can go out to Lohrmann on cybersecurity. You can see the blog this Sunday. It'll come out. But Perplexity interview that was out there and talking about orchestration using multiple different large language models, how metrics around how AI will be successful in the future. But one of the things he said that really hit me was, Dan, it's going to really come back to the customer service and the people side of it, because the relationships that the companies have, the brand, the trust, do I want to buy that product from this person or from this company or this company? Do I trust it? Do I believe in that? Is going to be front and center, which kind of blew me away. It's kind of like you think, I wasn't thinking that would be an end result of this AI conversation, but he was describing more specifically the field that, without going into details about what they were doing, but other people were copying them, and they were doing some, a year ago, they were the only ones doing certain things. Other people were jumping in and using these agentic AI models to be able to copy what they were doing. And so it became if you follow where I'm going with this. So, I mean, it was fascinating. It was a fascinating lunch, fascinating conversation. I encourage people to go see the Perplexity interview. And I linked to it in my blog this Sunday, Lohrmann on cybersecurity. But I would just say the reality is that, that people side of thing is not going away, and the trust and the relationship. And so I'd love to hear from you. How do you see AI changing the training for the individuals?
Well, I think in a number of ways. First and foremost, the training can be customized down to the individual. I mean, I know we're already doing that, but I think having that experience that's role-based and contextualized to the person will make it much more effective. In fact, there have been studies that show that it's 15 times more effective. So that's one thing that we can do. But the other thing is that we can rapidly create content now. So the training doesn't have to be just tailored to, a generic role or a generic company. It can actually be tailored down to the specific organization. I know we just did a fully custom, like videos and all. And it's not just boring. It's the very entertaining stuff at the beginning, attached to some of the more speaker head talking to get through the more boring policy stuff. But we did fully custom for a state. And I think that that's another thing that's really opened up, is that you don't have to just go look through the library anymore and decide what you want. You can have training that's customized to your state, their policies, and your organization, or their policies and their procedures. And it doesn't just have to be state. I know we work a lot with state governments. I work a lot with state governments here. But I do think that's the biggest two areas that I see it changing things. And then just the on-demand ability for users to get answers to questions when they have them, versus having to wait on somebody from the security team to respond.
Yeah, I think that timely response and being able to do quick, it's going to be huge in the future. We already have had that in the past. Like, here's what just happened to another local government, state government, another department in my government, and then quickly be able to train on that, not so much an ad hoc basis, but very quickly turn that around, and not a year later or something, because that's really impactful for staff. This just happened to Mary over in finance. Oh my goodness, we gotta get this out, kind of thing. So
and we absolutely pointed to breaches that other state governments had as an example of how to what not to do. But I mean, I think that's one of the great areas here, is that we can really make training that much more engaging, that much better. And I also think that it can help the practitioners. I was talking to somebody the other day who she runs security awareness for a very large Fortune 100. And she was talking about how we're expected to know psychology and security awareness, and now AI and all of this. We have to be experts in all these different areas, and it can cause burnout. And I was thinking about it. The area that so many cybersecurity professionals are weaker on is that behavioral science, the psychology side of it. But the AI can absolutely help there. And so maybe one of the things I might encourage people to do is, when you're thinking about building out your program, ask the AI some questions to, help. How can I make this more engaging? How can I make this messaging more effective? I think that's another area where we can, AI will be a lot of help as well.
Do you see AI training merging with cybersecurity training, or do you think they'll stay separate? If you know what I'm saying. I mean,
Well, I mean, I think I know at least for most of our clients, they're already merged.
okay.
And I do see them merging, but I could imagine, I could actually see a day where they split back off again,
Okay.
just because of AI being so prevalent.
Yeah. Interesting. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We unfortunately are out of time here.
I know we are.
Any last bits of advice before we wind up today?
No, I guess I would just say, it's the point of my blog on Sunday. What I was trying to get across a little bit today was just things are moving so fast, and I appreciate all the things you do, Joshua, and your involvement in the industry and leadership. I love your intro for your podcast, but just this is an ever moving, fast moving world we live in. I think people are recognizing that. And I think that's the scariest part is that, something that worked yesterday may not work tomorrow, may not work today. And so we got to constantly be coming back, training each other, learning from each other, lifelong learners, can't just, say, hey, this worked back in January. It may not work in July. And so, the more we can be, talking about it, giving examples, pointing people in the right direction, showing people what works, and continually, constantly learning and updating, the better off we're going to be, because that's the world we live in.
We do, and it's changing quickly. And I mean, I think to your point about saying yes, we almost have to with AI being so prevalent now, because otherwise we'll get run over and left.
Totally agree.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Thank you so much.